I'm going to come out and say it. I think Palworld is the greatest survival game I've ever played. I know what you're thinking. In a world of Subnautica, No Man's Sky, Valheim, Rust, Ark, The Long Dark, all these games that genuinely innovated on the genre and pushed the genre forward, how is Palworld what I consider to be the greatest? And yes, to be honest, I agree with you. All of those games are fantastic in their own right, and they all have these unique features that are, quite frankly, amazing. I mean, I think of No Man's Sky and its insane planetary system with the infinite planets that you can basically explore to no end. I think of games like Subnautica as well, with one of the greatest open worlds in a survival genre I've ever seen, one of the most unique ocean planets that I think anyone's ever experienced in a game. And I also think of games like Valheim that just have that ultimate cozy vibe that kind of lets you do anything and play the game however you want. And all of those games do have that one killer feature. And to be honest, I don't think Palworld has that one killer feature that kind of rises above the rest and makes it a game that's significantly different than any of these games that I just mentioned. But what I will say is that it does have refinement. It borrows a lot of different ideas from a lot of different games, most notably, of course, Pokemon, but combining all these ideas together, it creates something truly special. I played this game over 2 years ago when early access first dropped, and while I had some issues here and there, I definitely saw the vision. And now, going back and playing it again 2 years later with the 1.0 release, I can confidently say that Pocketpair meaningfully iterated on the game, and it's turned it into one of the staples of the genre that I think is going to have immense staying power. So today, let's talk about Palworld and why I think it is one of the greatest games in the survival genre ever made. If you're new here, my name is OjusXP, and if you like what I do, consider giving this video a like as well as subscribing. I've got tons of news videos as well as reviews coming out. I've got 2 massive retrospectives that I'm working on with Assassin's Creed Black Flag as well as Starfield, so get subscribed to stay tuned for those. Now look, if we're going to want to talk about what makes Palworld so great, I think we're going to have to talk first about its vibe as well as its world, because a lot of games in the survival genre are first and foremost built on the vibe that they're trying to curate as well as the world that you're going to be exploring. Are you going for cold and vast like No Man's Sky, or maybe nice and cozy like Valheim, or big and foreboding like Subnautica? That is one of the first decisions that you'll have to make as a game developer when you're making a survival game like this. And in many ways, it's what gets us gamers to be excited in the game in the first place. If the vibe and the tone is something that we're wanting out of a genre, then that's what we'll gravitate towards. And to be honest with you, I think Palworld's vibe is immaculate. In my opinion, Palworld's world is distinctly cozy. From the very whimsical but light and airy music to the vibe you can create at your base, all of it just serves to bring that cozy feeling into the game. But that's also not to mistake that the game isn't vast in its own right. Palworld does the kind of Elden Ring thing where you have your step out moment, you're graded to a massive sprawling valley filled with different biomes and a massive tower in the distance begging you to go explore it. Exploring in this game is rewarding. New biomes reveal new pals, tougher pals that maybe you don't have the ability to fight just yet, but if you get lucky and you're able to snag one despite the low odds, that gratification you get is just so addicting. The different biomes in this game provide vastly different looks to the game as well, and they serve to tangibly delineate the types of pals you may find in that biome, which when you think about it is kind of obvious, but considering how large Palworld's worlds actually are, it makes the feeling of stumbling across a new biome with new pals a core part of the gameplay loop. Look, I'm a sucker for cozy survival games. There's just that feeling that you get when it's like raining outside and you're playing a game like Palworld where you're doing work at your base, you're sleeping at night, you're going out and exploring, and there's that whimsy kind of vibe to Palworld as well. It's a pretty animated game. It's definitely more cartoony in its look, and I think that serves the game really, really well. You wouldn't really necessarily want super realistic pals, and just like you don't want super realistic Pokemon. So I think continuing that cozy vibe and taking some of those cartoony aspects from a game like Pokemon and incorporating it into Palworld, I think was the right move here, and I think it serves that cozy vibe just so well. That doesn't mean that the game isn't difficult or there isn't much to explore. I think cozy games get a lot of shit for kind of being bad mechanically in terms of gameplay. Palworld has a lot here. I just think that the world really serves that aesthetic and really makes it a fun game to come back to time and time again. But beyond the world, I think the gameplay is what really sets Palworld apart from a lot of its contemporaries. Palworld is a combination of many games. It doesn't necessarily have many new ideas of its own, but the combinations of these ideas and the harmony that all of these ideas together have is what I think creates one of the strongest and most addicting gameplay loops in the survival genre. Obviously, perhaps the most obvious rip is the pals system. You basically go out and capture pals, which is almost identical to Pokemon, down to some of the pals looking almost identical to some of the Pokemon and functioning and having the same purposes as those Pokemon. But it's not just Pokemon that it's ripping from as well. This game is also quintessential survival. It has a hunger mechanic, it has a carry weight mechanic, it has an inventory space mechanic, it has a base building mechanic. All of those things are pretty quintessential survival game and are shown in almost every single game in that genre. But it's also part satisfactory in some ways. Stay with me here. I mean, when you take all your pals and put them on your base and have them working for you, it's important to kind of optimize that work. What pals are you putting in depending on their abilities, and what do you want to maximize your bases for? Maybe you just want a logging base, so you bring in all your highest ranked logging pals, but then you also need some carriers, so you're going to have to throw in some pals that have the opposable thumbs that can carry things around. Like, it's all stuff that you have to think about in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, it's not as in-depth as a game like Satisfactory. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But what I am saying is there's at some level of optimization and automation that Palworld has you do at your base that not very many other games in the genre have you do. But on top of that, the game is also kind of part Elden Ring. I mean, when you think about it, there's these really strong bosses that you have to fight littered throughout the map. And that's kind of the main objective of the game. Obviously, the objective of the game is to kind of build your base up and capture all these pals, but it serves to complete and defeat these bosses. You go into these dungeons and defeat these bosses and try to capture the pals. All of that is very like Elden Ring-like. They're difficult bosses. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the game is as difficult as Elden Ring, but when you have that step out moment, you see the valley beneath you and you know that there's all these towers that are kind of littering the map that have these bosses for you to fight, I think is very, very Elden Ring like. It's very similar to that vibe that you get when you're playing a Souls-like or a game that has you focus on the action aspects. What I'm getting at here is that Palworld's gameplay loop has you doing various things that have been borrowed from other games. There are entire survival games just focused on building your base and surviving. There are games based on optimizing your base with strategy. There are games that focus on exploration and combat. And Palworld takes all of these aspects, boils them down to their core ideas, and combines them into a gameplay loop that just works. Going out, exploring, fighting, and capturing pals, maybe stopping at a dungeon to clear it and get the loot, completing a quest here and there to get back to your base and use this new pal you found for this specific thing you need it to do to optimize your base further, to get the better equipment, to then go out and fight the big tough bosses, is one of the most addicting gameplay loops I think I've ever experienced. All this to say, I don't think that there's a game out there like Palworld that scratches the manufactured itch that Palworld creates. What I'm getting at is that there's a lot of things that have been borrowed from other games that are thrown into Palworld, and in many ways, I don't think that they should necessarily work together. A survival and crafting game doesn't necessarily work with a pretty deep combat system, which also doesn't necessarily work with a pal capturing Pokemon style system, which also doesn't necessarily work with a dungeon system and an base optimization system. All of these ideas on their own could very well be games in their own right, and they are games in their own right. There are games with pretty deep survival and base building mechanics. There are games out there that are very deep in the terms of action and exploration and things like that. And while I don't think Palworld is very deep in one specific thing, it takes all these ideas, blends them into a game that creates a gameplay loop that is very deep, because all of these systems and features and aspects work together in such a harmonizing way that you want to do the base building features to get better pals and to like optimize your materials, to then go out and fight better pals with your better weapons, so then bring them back and optimize your base even further to then finally take your pals out and fight these bosses. It's just like that addicting gameplay loop of each system serving the other in one way or another. But none of these systems, again, are necessarily very original. They've been done in games prior. They've just been brought into Palworld together and made cohesive. There are many games out there like Palworld, but there are no games just like Palworld. If you want a game like Palworld, there are hundreds out there, but you will find that each of these games are missing something. Maybe the base management isn't as fun, or the exploration isn't as rewarding, or the automation isn't as deep or diverse, or the vibe isn't what you want it to be. Palworld is the only game that dared to combine these elements into one cohesive game, and in my opinion, that's what makes it the greatest of the genre. I mean, look, I've been playing the hell out of Palworld 1.0, and I've had a fantastic time with it. There are some issues that I had when the game first came out in early access, most notably with the story and the questing and things like that, but they have been ironed out, and this game has really turned into a cohesive masterpiece. It's janky in a way that you kind of want a survival game to be. Nothing super polished, which like sounds kind of weird for me to say, but I really do think that some of that jank kind of serves the coziness and the uniqueness of Palworld as a whole. But on top of all that, it is just more smoothed out experience in the beginning. There's more pals. There's so much more to find that wasn't there in the early access period, and I've been having a hell of a time playing it. Palworld right now is out on Game Pass, which I think if you have it, you should definitely give it a try. But I also think it's worth to pick up if you're a fan of the genre. If you like survival games, if you played games like No Man's Sky in the past or Subnautica, maybe you won't find as deep of a story as like a game like Subnautica, but I think you will find a lot to like here. And if you're a Pokemon fan, go ahead and buy this game right now, because Palworld is going to give you an experience that no Pokemon game has done before it. Making a survival crafting game out of Pokemon isn't something that Game Freak has ever done, and I don't think they're ever planning on doing. But Palworld dared to do it. They dared to take something from Game Freak and Pokemon that I don't think anyone's ever taken from them before, and they've turned it into something really, really special. Either way, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Palworld down below. Are you enjoying the game as much as me? Am I crazy to say that this is one of the greatest games in the survival genre? I would love to hear everything y'all have to say down in the comments below. Again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and stay tuned for all the retrospectives and reviews I have coming up. Get subscribed. It's been OJusXP. I'm out.